I'm going to begin, guys, by asking, how did the Sony and the kind of MCU come to be involved in this together, and who made the first move?
He did.
We had a lunch in Amy's beautiful office and talking about the future of Spider-Man, and I said, how about we do it together?
Yeah, he did. And at first I thought, I don't know how I do this or how we can do this, and how dare you? And then I thought, oh my God, this would be fantastic. This is the only way to do it. Because the truth is that when, we worked with Kevin on the first couple of movies because he worked with Avi and he worked at Marvel at that time. He's worked at Marvel that whole time. And in the later years when he was really busy becoming himself, he would, read scripts and help, but I wanted him to really help, and I wanted his real brain on this because there is nobody better at it.
Because it's quite rare, isn't it, to see studios collaborate like this, and also free if you involve Disney as well. Mm-hmm. Can you see this happening more often from this point onwards?
No.
Probably not. I think it really takes. I think it takes somebody like Amy to say this is the best thing for the character. And Amy, and maybe people say this about other characters all the time, but Amy loves Spider-Man more than anybody else loves Spider-Man.
Except for you. We probably love the Spider-Man.
She really does. And that's how this worked.
Yeah.
Because it was what was going to be best for this character that we all loved.
And the truth is that you don't usually say this about corporations, and it is really rare. But for Disney, for Marvel, and for Sony, the best Spider-Man is the most economically is the thing that they need too. Right. And if the movie is great and the character is restored to his place as he should be, it's good for everyone. And everyone saw that making something really good was actually made economic sense.
And one of the reasons I was so excited going into this project is because this is one of the first times now we're starting to see Spider-Man interact with other superheroes. One of the things that Spider-Man, he was so self-contained, we didn't get to see him talk or meet other superheroes. Is that was one
the whole
of the
point.
appeals?
That was the whole point. The whole point is Spider-Man isn't Spider-Man unless he's Spider-Man in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, we wanted for the first time to see him interact, because when Stan Lee and Steve Ditko created Spider-Man, he wasn't the only superhero in that world. He wasn't by himself in New York City. He was one of the things that made him, the what he became, which was the icon of the company, the greatest comic book character, is he was so different than those other heroes. And when there aren't those other heroes, you don't quite get Spider-Man to be what Spider-Man is.
And then we could cast a kid that was so different, Then we could cast a kid who was a kid. And that was what was so important about finding Tom Holland, is that we were going to put him in this world with all these gods and grown-ups, and he needed to be really different than them.
So you've already mentioned him, Amy. You said this is your favourite character. What is it about Spider-Man that keeps audiences coming back? And it's just, he's so many people's favourite superhero. What do you think it is about the character that allows us to
he's so relatable, and he's so flawed, and he's so scared, and he's so vulnerable. And we would love to believe that people who are heroic, who save the world, have all the same foibles as we do. Isn't it great to think that the people that you're depending on are just like you?
Completely. But what do you think Spider-Man's future holds now? Sort of beyond Infinity War and Homecoming, obviously we've got the sequel. Can you see him appearing in more and more films? Obviously we've got Venom and Silver and Black as well. And they're sort of not in the MCU as such, but can we see him?
Well, they are tangential because they take place in the world that this Spider-Man lives in. But as far as I'm concerned, I hope we keep making movies with Marvel and keeping Spider-Man where he belongs.
So might we see him in Venom and Silver and Black?
Don't know.
So off we go. And do you think we might see the Osborns return in the future as well?
We haven't talked about that.
No.
There's some. What's fun about this is the first time Spider-Man's in the MCU, and the first time he's played by an actor who is the age, essentially, that Spidey was in those comics for so long. And, as Michael Keaton does with the Vulture, we get to explore villains that we haven't seen before. Yeah. And Spidey has an amazing rogues gallery. Yeah. So at some point, I think it might be interesting to revisit some of the characters we've seen in films before. But right now, we think there are a lot of new ones that we haven't played with yet.
What's the challenges there's always this kind of obligation, I guess, to constantly reinvent the superhero genre, but at the same time maintain that same tone that fans adore. How much of a challenge is that going into every passing project to try something new and yet ensure that fans aren't sort of too distant from the project?
Well, I think you have to really analyze what it is you're trying to do before you do it. Kevin, talk a little bit about how the Marvel Universe is Peter Parker's history.
Well, we want to keep ourselves interested first,
Yeah.
right? Nobody spends more time thinking or watching these movies than we do. So we always want to change things and surprise people and keep ourselves entertained as well. And I think the tonality that's shared amongst the films is just sort of our natural instincts, but we want all the films to feel very unique. And you look at Spider-Man Homecoming versus Guardians of the Galaxy 2 versus the upcoming Ragnarok or Black Panther. These are all very, very different types of movies. They all happen to be based on Marvel Comics. But what is so fun, and going back to what Amy was saying about Peter being relatable, is that for the first time, now 10 years of Marvel Studios films and 15 films up until Spider-Man Homecoming, there have been people who've grown up watching these movies now. And that's basically what Peter Parker is. What it would be like to live in this world, not where these things were movies, but where these actually happen, out your window, on your television set. And that alone we thought would be an interesting idea for a movie, much less making it Spider-Man and Peter Parker. What would it be like to grow up where this is your reality? That was something that intrigued us.
Because he almost represents us, doesn't he?
Yes,
because
he does.
when he meets them, he's always in awe of their celebrity status like we are.
That's exactly right, which is exactly what it was like when Tom Holland met Robert Downey Jr. So there's just this meta thing going on and on and on. But what's true for the movie and what's true for Peter is also true for the villain. He's also grown up and has a life in a world where these guys are gods and these guys can do anything they want. And it's not always good for everybody.
Also, I mean, just literally this sort of past week, we've had, I mean, Black Panther's basically breaking the internet with its amount of kind of views and stuff. And then obviously Wonder Woman has been a real success. I mean, has this really shown the need for diversity and representation in the superhero genre this past sort of month?
Yeah, I think it's like fantastic, and I wished it happened ages ago, but I'm glad it's happening now.
And I was also wondering, I mean, in regards to, we were just talking about how you kind of reinvent Marvel and sort of as you keep going along. And I was wondering about the impact of Deadpool, which at the time I remember seeing it got such a good response, but it really deconstructed the genre to a point where I wondered if you ever had concerns it might backfire in some way, where it could kind of, because it really kind of exposes the kind of tropes, doesn't it, in many ways?
Yes, it does, but it also is having a love affair with them at the same time.
That's what I thought.
So it doesn't, it exposes them and pokes fun at them, but it celebrates them at the same time. So
and that breaking the fourth wall is what Deadpool did in the comics all the time,
Yeah.
right? So that was always something that made him unique.
Another character I'd just love to see is Captain Britain. Is that one that has ever been discussed about being?
We have discussed it. There are a lot of actors that come in and ask about that about that part. So we'll have to see.
And just and finally, just one for you, Amy. I'm just wondering about. I meant at the time after Ghostbusters, which was fantastic, and there was lots of talk about a potential sequel. Dan Aykroyd was on British TV recently and didn't sound so convinced there might be a sequel. I was wondering if there's any update on that.
You know what? You should really talk to Ivan Reitman because it's really his franchise. I hope there is one.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank
guys.
you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!